What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another sports card episode. Today I am your host, Tim Luque, and today we're gonna talk about the different brands that you might want to buy when looking to purchasing sports cards, investing in sports cards. Things have changed since the last time you may have experienced the hobby. I know for me and many other people, we're coming back into it from the '90s era. And back then there were quite a few different brands, but it's a little bit different today than it was back then. So we had last in the '90s we had Topps, we had Fleer, we had Donruss, and then we had Upper Deck emerge onto the scene in the late '80s. Those were the brands that we knew and collected, and we kind of had an idea of what the market was and what we wanted, what we liked, and hopefully what we thought were going to be good long-term investments. As it turned out, most of what we thought was going to be long-term didn't really pan out that way, and hence we have the term junk wax era for the '90s, the late '80s, early '90s cards. With that said, now we're fast forward to today. We have different brands to look out for. To make a long story short, the company Panini purchased several of these previous card companies, and they also have the license to manufacture exclusively for the NFL and the NBA. So that's the brand, that's the manufacturer that we're looking at, and I want to look today at the three brands that Panini manufactures and how they compare and why all three of them might make for good investments. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Let's go ahead and make this small. So let's take a look at the flagship product, Panini Prism. This is the product that you want to look for. This is still the flagship. It came onto the scene in 2012. 2012 was the first year that Panini decided to come out with a product called Prism. And the example that you see here of this Jalen Hurts is pretty much what the card looks like year after year. Kind of a silver border card. And this is really the flagship rookie card for any NFL or NBA players that came onto the scene between 2012 and today. This is just an example, a Jalen Hurts Prism rookie card. So that's what you would call this. If you were investing in Jalen Hurts, you would say, do you have a Jalen Hurts Prism base 10? And that indicates that you're looking for a Prism Jalen Hurts rookie card in a PSA 10 grade. And for reference purposes, I put what the card sells for currently on eBay. And it sells for about $250, and there's about 218 of these cards that are graded in a PSA 10. If you've watched my previous videos, you know that 218 is considered a relatively low pop count. Now, with that said, keep in mind this card was manufactured in 2020, and PSA has been backlogged since 2020, so there most likely are going to be quite a few more graded PSA 10 cards for Jalen Hurts on the market in the coming months. So these pop counts can be a little bit deceptive, but basically it's a pop count of 218, which is not bad, even knowing that more are coming down the road. Some other content creators have kind of indicated that football may not be as overprinted as basketball. So that's also something to keep in mind when you're investing for the long term. Now, along with Prism, there's also the silver variation, and this is a little bit more high end of the same card. And so you can see I put the pictures here side by side, and they're exactly the same. The difference is there's a slight, I guess I don't know if you would call it a gloss, a shine, but there's a little bit of a difference to the silver as opposed to the base Prism. And so the silver is the one I'm circling here, and the only real way to tell, other than you'll be able to tell if you see the card in person, but also in the back, it'll also say Prism on the top, and that indicates that it's a silver. So that's a little bit tricky because they're both prisms. But if you want the Prism silver, you actually look for the word Prism somewhere in the back of the card. And on this Jalen Hurts, it is on the top, as you can see right here. So Yeah, anyway, those are the difference between the two Prisms, the Prism and the Prism Silver. Here again, I gave you the PSA 10 as an example. The Prism Silver for Jalen Hurts trades for $1,000, a pop of only 65. The silvers are going to have lower pop counts than the Prism base cards, so that's also something to keep in mind. They're nicer cards and they're more rare, so they might make for better long-term investments. This is all to be determined, because you're going to have to pay more for the silver as well. So if you want to, keep your costs down, I think, investing in the PSA 10 is just as good. If you believe in Jalen Hurts and you believe in the future of Jalen Hurts, either one of these cards would make it for a good investment. So let's go ahead and take a look at another Panini product. Panini has 3 products. So we just looked at silver. The other product they have is called Select. Select, when it first came out, it also came out the same year as Prism in 2012, and it's a hobby-only product. So the Prism boxes you would actually find in Target and Walmart. They were a retail product, and you could pretty much get them anywhere. They were more widely available. The Select products you would only find in local card shops. And for those of you who may remember the 90s, it seemed like there was a card shop everywhere. And then if you fast forward to maybe 10 years after the 90s, maybe somewhere in the 2000s, you couldn't find a card shop anywhere. So where were these boxes sold? That's what I want to know. Anyway, for that reason, these cards are relatively scarce. They were hobby only, so they were only released to local card shops. All 2 of them in America for most of the last decade. And within Select, there's 3 levels, similar to levels in an arena or a stadium. So the concourse level, that's kind of like the equivalent of the nosebleeds. And this is an example of a Ja Morant concourse. And the Panini Select concourse roughly trades about 70% of the Prism comps. So that's another way to think about it too. It's a slightly less expensive product, but still a nice card. I actually really like this Ja Morant card itself, as opposed to the Ja Morant Prism card, at least the picture and the look of it and everything. So for me personally, if I'm going to invest in Ja Morant, I would gladly pay 30% less than I would for the Prism base 10 for what I think is a better looking card. You can see here I put that pre-2020 there were way lower print runs. I'm not going to get into that. Select has just recently been released in retail. For the most part, if you're collecting any players that are, Trae Young or Luka or Ja Morant, those were all hobby-only products. Therefore, the print runs are going to be much lower than they are compared to the Prism base. So that's just what we're going to focus on right now when you're thinking about investing in any of these different brands. And you can see here this Ja Morant. This is a PSA 10. I didn't put that here, but that trades for about $130. So that's just a price point. And the pop count is 2,700. There's 2,700 of these graded in a PSA 10. So what I did is I compared Ja Morant the different levels. So Panini Select, still in the same hobby-only product, they also have the Premier level. And if you've ever been to the Staples Center in LA, they have a Premier level. So that's probably what the equivalent of this would be. And if you haven't, just go ahead and Google it and look it up on a map. But the Premier level is the next level up from the Concourse. So it's more scarce. It's actually significantly more scarce. If you look at this Ja Morant, there's this PSA 10. It trades for $155, pops 700. There's 2,000 fewer PSA 10s in a Ja Morant's Premier level than there are in a Ja Morant Concourse level. But the price is almost the same. If you remember, the Ja Morant Concourse is $130. Here it's $155. You're virtually paying the same price for a much more scarce card. This is something that another YouTube content creator, Northeast Ohio, points out in a couple of different videos. And it seemed as though people were catching on to this, but now it seems like it's back to being a hidden secret because, like I said, you can get a Ja Morant for roughly the same price as his Concourse. And maybe it's just that people aren't going to make that distinction. Maybe people don't really care that this card is more scarce. They might just want the Concourse. They might think it's a better looking card, or they might just value it as his true rookie card. and they don't really want to mess with this Premier level. So that's for everyone to determine. Really the market's going to decide what card is in demand. I personally like the look of this card, and I like the lower pop count, so I would actually buy this card over the Concourse at this point in time. The last level of Premier of Select is the either courtside in basketball or field level in football. So here we're just looking at John Moran. I wanted to compare all three variations. These are super short printed cards, so you're going to see much higher price points and much lower pop counts. Here you see the John Morant Courtside. It still sells for close to $1,000 in a PSA 10. There's only 220 of these graded in a PSA 10. That's actually a low pop count, as I've stated before. But for a courtside, it's kind of high, actually. If you look at some other stars that have courtside PSA 10s, you'll see their pop counts are even lower than this. So John Morant, obviously, he was a rookie at a time when Panini was starting to print more cards. So there's going to be more of his cards than there are of other stars in the league. So that's just a point of reference. And this is really the most desirable card in the Select brand. People are going to chase the courtside because it's so rare. So that's something to consider as well. It's also harder to get price points sometimes. I noticed that when I'm looking for courtsides, they're not always available. And when you're looking at a prior sale, sometimes they haven't sold for weeks or maybe even a whole month. And so it's hard to tell, is this a recent comp? Where's the market at from a month ago? Are people buying this particular player? So it does cause a little bit of, you kind of got to do a little bit more research to get a good comp to make sure that you're buying at market value. And the other thing to consider too is not all players have a courtside or a field level. Donovan Mitchell is a perfect example. He only has a concourse. He doesn't have a Premier and he doesn't have a courtside. And so I don't know where Panini decides to, make a courtside for certain players. Obviously, I'm sure the number one overall draft pick is going to have a courtside. From that point on, though, I'm not sure where the cutoff is. Is it only the lottery picks? Is it only certain players that they think are going to have a successful career, maybe based on some other studies? So these are things maybe I might find out down the road. In any case, I would argue that most players do not have a courtside. It's really only the potential, the current superstars and the potential superstars. Those are the ones that you're going to find the courtsides and the field level in football. The last product that Panini comes out with, that's actually a product that I would say you should invest in. That if you're you're just getting back into it, you're just getting a feel for the market, you want to look at these three: the Prism, which we talked about, Select, which we just talked about, and finally Donruss. If you collected in the 80s and the 90s, you probably remember Donruss for baseball, particularly the Ken Griffey Jr. rookie card, which had this rated rookie logo. This logo is still popular today. So when we're looking at Donruss, collectors still like this logo, and this is one of the three main brands that you're going to want to look at when you're buying NBA and NFL. Here I use the Zion Williamson as an example. His Donruss rookie card in PSA 10 sells for $99. There's 3,131 of them graded in a PSA 10. That's a good pop count. That's a decent amount. And I actually think though, but I wouldn't say that's an excessively high pop count. And for $99, that's not bad. I mean, Zion Williamson balled out, especially toward the end of the season. He's clearly shown his potential in the NBA. Imagine, Shaquille O'Neal his rookie year, or somebody else, who just showed all this promise so early on in their career, and you could get their PSA 10 graded rookie card for $99. To me, that's actually a pretty good deal, especially if you're just getting back into it. You're not really sure about all these price points, and you're not really sure how much money you want to spend on buying sports cards. This is a good one to go after. So you might hear the term paper. That's to distinguish between the Donruss related brand, which is called Donruss Optic. that has more of a chrome finish, and it's just it's a nicer stock of card. We're going to get into that in the next slide, but this is the Donruss paper Zion Williamson rated rookie, and it does trade for slightly lower than the Donruss Optic card, and that's just because the Optic is a nicer card. Oh yeah, just a point of reference too, Panini Donruss still does print baseball. They don't have the license for Major League Baseball though. So you'll see these Donruss baseball cards with no logo on their helmet, no logo on the jersey. It's just the player and a blank jersey, a blank helmet or hat. But they're still nice cards. There are some autos. There are some nice inserts in there. So if you're a collector and you just like collecting certain baseball cards, they're still good cards to have. One example is Jacob deGrom has a Donruss rookie card that still holds decent value. You might hear that you don't really want to buy Donruss baseball because they're not licensed by Major League Baseball, and therefore they might not be considered long-term collectible cards. I don't know that that's entirely true. I think if there's like a nice Mike Trout insert or a nice Mike Trout auto, people might want it. They might want it 20 years from now. And also consider, because it's not licensed by Major League Baseball, the cards are cheaper. So again, if you're looking to kind of get your feet wet, that might be a way to go as well. And then last, we're going to take a look at the Donruss Optic, Zion Williamson. This Optic PSA 10 trades for $150. You see here there's 6,636 of these PSA 10 graded cards, twice as many as Donruss. So there's a significantly higher pop count, and that's one of the reasons why the price point is roughly, more or less just slightly more than the Donruss paper product itself. And again, I think that's a pretty good buy if you're looking to invest in Zion Williamson. I would say overall the prices are lower right now than what you might find, either what you found at the beginning of the basketball season or maybe what will be at the beginning of the next NBA season. The Pelicans didn't make the playoffs. I think that really was kind of a buzzkill for Zion. I think a lot of people were pretty excited to see him get into the playoffs. The fact that he didn't, I think that definitely affected the value of his cards. But going into next NBA season, the hype's going to be there. I feel like no matter what happens with the Pelicans, if Lonzo Ball moves to another team and they sign another player, if they get a new coach, anything that happens, I think that's going to be a positive. There's no way that Pelicans team should not make the playoffs in the upcoming NBA season, especially as this will be Zion's first full 82-game NBA season. So you can see here with the Optic Holo, it has a nice glossy finish. They also have the Holo version of the Optic, and that's the equivalent of the silver in Prism. I don't have a picture of that here, but it also has kind of a shiny gloss to it, even shinier than just this chrome finish, and it's a significantly lower pop count. So if you're looking for the higher end card, it's the Optic Holo, it's the Prism Silver, and in Select, it's the Select Silver. So that's the way to think about it. Silver, Holo, those are the high-end investments. And then the base Prism, the base Select, and then you got your Donruss paper and Donruss Optic. And the first year of production for Donruss Optic was 2016, which Ziggy No says actually is the worst draft class in the last 10 years, is the 2016-2017 draft class. This class, of course, has Jaylen Brown, Brandon Ingram, Ben Simmons, Domantas Sabonis, Karis LeVert, Malcolm Brogdon. So a lot of players that are just terrible players. Of course, I'm kidding, right? I think all these players are really good, have a lot of potential. I'm not sure what Ziggy's talking about there, but I do hope he actually watches this video. That would be kind of cool. So the other thing to note about these cards is they gem at a high rate. What that means is they grade as a PSA 10 at a very high rate. Just as an example, I sent in quite a few Domantas Sabonis cards for grading, and I looked at the pop counts on the PSA website. We'll get into that in another video. but it looked like they're grading at about 75%, a 75% gem rate. So 3 out of every 4 cards potentially will come back as a PSA 10. That's extremely high. And I believe that the Zion Williamson rookie card year also grades out very well, gems very well. So that's another thing to keep in mind when you're buying cards, and maybe you don't want to pay the full PSA 10 price, but you're willing to buy the ungraded card, and you find it as a deal on eBay. Really check it out. If you and we can go into another video on how to test for basically the condition of the card. But if you feel it's good to go, you can buy the ungraded card, send it into PSA yourself, and you have a really high shot at getting a PSA 10. This is where I think ultimately I'm going to make my living in this hobby, because it just allows me to buy a lot more cards and have a much bigger collection. So anyway, thanks for watching. I just wanted to cover quickly the different brands to buy for Panini. And sorry, that's not what I wanted to show here. And that's it. Please comment if you have any comments. I know this is a basic presentation for some people that might run across this, but hopefully it was helpful to those that are just getting back into it. Go ahead and like the video if you liked it. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. But anyway, hopefully you enjoyed this, and I'll see you on the next one.